Hello, this is Tom, aka Jetty. I'm here for Star Frontiers Gamer Fanzine Friday at Tabletop Tap Room. And it's Fanzine Friday number 29, which means we are doing issue 4 of the Frontier Explorer. So here's the cover. This was a DeviantArt artist, and let's just go to third page here. Cover art was called Recon by Arcas on DeviantArt. It's just a great cover. And our cover quote, "Forever walk with your eyes turned skyward." This is actually a Leonardo da Vinci quote. And the full quote is, "Once you have tasted flight, you will forever walk the earth with your eyes turned skyward. For there you have been, and there you will always long to return." I don't really remember him being such a successful aerialist, but it was just a cool quote, and we had to use it for the cover. So this is actually an issue I really loved working on. And there's just two themes to this issue. There's Subspace Radios, and then there's the Saurian sector, the Saurian affair. We attempted to build off of the Dragon magazine article on the Saurians and expand it. Like, for instance, in the Dragon magazine article, we get the name of their planet, and that's it. Not much else. Well, we expanded and did a whole planetary brief. We actually did a Saurian sector of space and grounded it to the frontier. We know that the Saurian refugees ended up at Minotaur. I believe Minotaur, and maybe even some of them at Losend. So we did the jump route to the Saurian sector through the Liberty system. And we just expanded and did a whole sector for you to explore, did planetary footnotes and so on. But to kick it off, Tom Stevens did this great article that I absolutely loved on Subspace Radios. And, seeing as how he was our resident rocket scientist, astronomer, and NASA consultant, I just thought this was a great article for him to tackle anyways. And so he went in depth about lightspeed communications, subspace radio basics. I love this illustration that he did with the silhouette of a man. It just kind of illustrates how bulky this equipment is and why you don't put the subspace radio on your equipment list for your character. So he went into physical design, subspace frequencies, operating the radio, message encryption, characters with astronomical skills and those without, the economics, other considerations like listening posts, military uses, and then my favorite, plot hooks. So there's a number of plot hooks here, just to kick off a whole adventure, just kicking it off, starting it with the subspace radio. You get animal handling skill. This was an attempt to add a skill to the Alphadon skill system. And so it was treating animal handling skill as an Alphadon skill system skill, with taming sub-skill, analyze animal behavior as a sub-skill, animal training sub-skill, veterinary skill. So, it was a little bit of, veterinary skill just acts exactly like medical skill, but for animals. So it's a little bit going on here of trying to create a whole PSA almost, but not quite. But you could treat it almost as a PSA. And, there's the referee section talking about domestication. What is domestication? It's different than taming an animal. An animal can be tamed. It's not domesticated. Instinct, referee's notes on instincts, equipment for animals, a first aid kit, veterinary medical kit, food and bedding. So it was just a very thorough article. And then we get into another great article. I absolutely love this when Tom wrote this. Space Fleet Signal Corps. It's detailing a whole section of Space Fleet that's dedicated. It's the Space Fleet Signal Corps. It's dedicated to subspace radios and signal intelligence and signal intercept. And it's you get a good description of this. It's enough for you to kick off maybe an adventure where the player characters are within Space Fleet Signal Corps. Potentially, this discusses their training, the patch, for the Space Fleet Signal Corps, and potentially they could be based on a Talnor class communications ship designed by Tom Stevens. And so I was all for this. The Talnor class communications ship. It talks about the ship's roles, the ship's designs, the crew, Nighthawk statistics. The only thing you don't get here is a deck plan. That was our big failing. But what we're going to see in a little bit when we get into the Saurian material, because this ship, it's got some light defenses, a couple of laser batteries, but it has all of these subspace radios, 50 subspace radios. It is a communications hub for a fleet, but it's also an exploration ship. And it might be analyzing signal intel, and it might lead it to a first contact situation. And so that was kind of how we were kind of thinking about this. But we were also going into this Saurian sector, working on fleshing out the Saurian material. So this is a little cover page for the Saurian Cycle that I did. There's a lot going on here. I'm not super excited about the art I did for this. One question a kid asked was, is this guy trying to shoot himself in the face? He's holding his gun, trying to put a fear reaction on him in reference to the quick death, which is entirely oversized. He's entirely too big for the characters in this picture. But so the Saurian Cycle, roadmap to adventure. We talk about radio-free Sauria, how signals are beginning to be intercepted, and so Space Fleet would be interested and send out ships to go and investigate that. We discussed some ventures in the Saurian sector, and the enemy of my enemy is my friend. The Saurians were being badly persecuted by the Sathar, and this could be a reason why you had 60 long years between the first and second Sathar War, was they were too busy dealing with, like, say, the Saurians. So it's just a little one-page discussion of adventures in the Saurian sector. You get the whole sector brief here with a map. It's grounded because it's linked to Liberty System. So you've got this jump route, but we have the Sauria home system where Kishin is, and they've done a little bit of exploring, but when they did their exploring and they began branching out, that's when they encountered the Sathar and led to their persecution by the Sathar. We created a whole astrographic catalog of planets and stars for this sector with some footnotes and some information, so you can do a whole exploration campaign there. And then we discuss Saurian spacecraft, because what we did not want to do is we did not want the Saurian spacecraft technology to be exactly the same as what you get in the Frontier. So we had this artwork of these battle rays that we got to use, and we developed a whole new weapon system. That's the Saurian weapon system. And we're we're going to scroll down, and here it is. Magnetically accelerated high energy missile, also called Mayhem system. This whole thing was designed by Tom Stevens. We get the whole diagram showing engineering stuff. And using it in the Nighthawks board game, and so on and so forth. But the Saurian ships are all detailed with their statistics. We did a fighter. We did the Saurian battle ray, which is hull size 4, and then the Saurian arc ship, which had been hinted at in the original Saurian article, but there was no stats for it. So we figured we might as well do some write-up on that and some stats. And with all of this information, you then get the Saurian Affair, which is some Nighthawks scenarios that also use the Talnor class communications vessel. So the first one is called First Contact, and the UPF ship in there is the Adria Norma, the Talnor class communication vessel, a handful of Saurian ships, and a couple of Sathar destroyers. Then next up, you get a Ray of Hope, which is a patrol group has shown up to support the Talnor class communication vessel. And so you get a little bit of a battle here with the Sathar forces. And then you have the last ship out. Can the last of the Saurian arc ships escape the Sathar onslaught? This is a battle royale because the Strike Force Nova in all its glory shows up, and you have a handful of Saurian ships, 20 fighters, 3 battle rays, and 2 arc ships. And then you get a host of Sathar vessels. So it's a complete Nighthawks campaign within like about 3 pages. We then expanded upon Kishin Planetary Report. We lifted the name of the planet out of the Dragon Magazine article and extrapolated a lot from what we saw in that article and wrote up a whole. Now, this planet is doomed to be, according to Dragon, to be overrun by the Sathar. So it's kind of a moot point that we bother, but if it's a place that players can visit during First Contact, and we figured we might as well write it up. We talk about the overview, the society. Some, again, Saurian technology should be different from frontier technology. So we invented the Saurian laser spear. The S model is those that were made on Kishin in the Sauria system. And then there's the Saurian laser spear PGC model. There's still a high demand for them amongst the Saurians. It's very traditional. So PGC, not willing to waste an opportunity and leave money on the table. They started making some that completely compatible with frontier technology. Just slap a 20 SCU power clip in it. The actual S model made on Kishin, we made that differently. It doesn't operate on the 20 SCU clip. It's got different power sources that are not necessarily compatible with frontier technology. So planetary environments discussed, the zoology. We went into just 2 creatures because we're not expecting you to really have long and involved adventures on this planet. It's doomed to be overrun by the Sathar. So we did do the land dragons. So the some of the head crests here, you've got a horn and the head, the bony crest, bony plates on the back of the head. These were inspired by the actual artwork that we got in Dragon Magazine for some of the Saurians, because there's 4 different species of Saurians, as you see here in this drawing, with different head crests. And so we just extrapolated that was part of the evolutionary tree, and you see that expressed in the Saurian land dragon. We also detailed up a Saurian sea serpent, no artwork for that, but stats for them as small, medium, large, and giant. So just a fairly thorough review, planetary brief. on Kishin that you just did not get in Dragon. That should have been there, maybe. The next up was Eric Iggy Windsor's Infita. This is a creature from Homeworld in the Capella system. And what's really cool is, not least of which is that it's potentially a creature that, you might have a Capellan free merchant with this creature, like it's sitting on his shoulder, like a pirate has a parrot on his shoulder. But this little GM adventure material ties in to the fiction that was in the previous issue for Luco's Honor. And so it ties into that. And I kind of thought that was a nice, cool thing. Next up is some more fiction by Edward Cintron. It's called Love and Atomic Rockets. I actually really like these stories. This is the first of several stories by Edwin. And, these were actually good. I liked following this family and their adventures. And, I just thought this was really, really good. I actually got inspired and did some of the artwork for it. Not my best, but Now, Gear Up for Adventure. We got permission to use artwork by an artist on DeviantArt. So we had this artwork, we could use it, and it's of equipment. So I was like, well, let's write an article for these equipment illustrations and just create the equipment. So you get the Vibro boomerang, which I don't really think would work, but why not? We had the artwork. You might as well write the item. And you get these screen overload gloves. They're like shot gloves, but they're designed for overloading defensive screen. And this roller ball car. So we did those up. It's just a quick throwaway article, just some, interesting gear, different stuff. I think probably the most useful things here would be the screen overload gloves. Something, a little bit different. Maybe an NPC could use that. Player characters getting a little cocky because they've got an albedo screen. Maybe one of their opponents has these gloves, overload the screen. And then next up, as if we didn't need to just have one planetary brief, I wrote another planetary brief for Morgaine's world, going into its history and culture, the things we knew about it. The Galwin Academy is there for Space Fleet. Starlaw maintains an academy, a training center there. We talk about local gear. I add in some sports. I think at the time I was watching a professional knife throwing competition on TV, and I thought they need a sport, knife throwing. It's the sport of Morgaine's world. Everybody's into knife throwing there. They have knife throwing championships. And so we talk about local skills, the Morgaine knife, and Morgaine trekkers. Now, here's the thing. This illustration I actually like. Oh, geez. That thing needs to be cleaned up a little bit. But this was just a freehand sketch of a pair of my boots with a knife leaning against them. And the Morgaine trekkers, I wanted some material culture rooted in the planet, not just to do a planetary brief. So these boots, the handmade ones that are handmade in small little shops on Morgaine's world, are the actual Morgaine trekkers. They're knocked off by the megacorps. They're knocked off left and right. Those are not special. But the actual real Morgaine trekkers are an explorer's boot, and they confer a plus 5% bonus to dexterity and reaction speed checks when you're doing that in rough terrain. If you're in the city on a starship, you don't get any benefit. But they're designed to really fit your feet and to give you an edge in rough terrain, forests, mountains, that sort of thing. And then the Morgaine knife, figured if knife throwing's a thing, they're going to have some really well-developed. And there's one manufacturer of the Morgaine trekker that actually manufactures the boot with an integral knife sheath. It's a little more expensive, so but you got to track it down and negotiate, for these handmade boots. So I kind of like that, and I thought it was cool. And then last up, we get another Grymz guide telling us to lesson 4 for Grymz Guide to Intergalactic Conquest, telling us to expect the unexpected. So I loved this particular issue, and you could actually say that it's got 2 themes. It's a very theme-heavy issue. One is on subspace radios, communication ships, Starfleet Signal Corps, and then the other is the Saurian Cycle. So we really we kind of went a little bit crazy trying to, most 90% of this all ties in together, except for the Infita being a creature from Capella system and the Morgaine's world planetary brief. But we really kind of went crazy trying to tie everything together. And so this was a fun issue to work on. And I just absolutely enjoyed doing this with Tom. The stuff he created in this I just loved it. I just thought, oh, that's really cool. Love that stuff. And, I just thought this would be a cool Starfleet, Space Fleet campaign. Characters are in the Signal Corps and leads to a first contact. Doesn't even have to be the Saurians. You could pick one of the, player character possible races that were introduced in any of the magazines, from the Star Frontiersman to Frontier Explorer, and you could just pick any race and say, all right, I'm going to use this one, and we're going to have a first contact, adventure. And I just think that's really cool. And some of those plot hooks in the Subspace Radio article actually hint at how you would go about doing that. So very much a cool issue with a lot to offer. New ships, new weapon systems, artifacts from, the Saurian home system, because the Saurian would probably pay you good money to get his hands on an actual laser spear that was manufactured on his home world. He's going to want that. Why do you have it? He might be offended that you have it. So, I mean, some interesting stuff. And of course, I don't know if you spotted it, but those laser spears were kind of slightly inspired by Stargate. So the Stargate TV series. So, there's probably a little bit of that rifting through my head when I was working on that stuff. This is Tom from Tabletop Taproom. Thanks for watching the video. Check out the links below. This is also produced as a podcast, so maybe you don't always have time to watch this video, and you might perchance listen to the podcast while traveling, because you can't, don't be watching videos while you're driving. It's not good for them. But and also we've got some merch to help support the the expenditures for some equipment and to keep things going here at the channel. And so thanks for supporting us. Don't forget to hit the bell icon and the like and subscribe buttons. And I'll see you in the frontier.